It was the college football season kicking off this past weekend, and a ton of NFL prospects made their season debuts. Eric Crocker, a big Crocky from Locked On NFL Draft, of course, Locked On Niners. He's going to tell us whose stock is already rising and whose is falling. That's coming up here on the Locked On NFL podcast. Today, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle. DirecTV Stream brings you live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, which means you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. And the best part, there's no annual contract. Stop waiting and get your TV together. With DirecTV Stream, you can learn more, directtv.com. DirecTV.com, that's where your streaming and your on-demand, they come together, just like tasty and nutritional come together with your Built Bar. It's the best tasting protein bar on the market, and it's just as healthy as it is delicious. Built Bar. Right now, you can save yourself some cash by going to Built.com and using the promo code LOCK15, and you can try which Built Bar you like the best. Coconut, almond, cherry, raspberry, mint brownie, peanut butter brownie, double chocolate, or salted caramel. There's a flavor just for you. 17 grams of muscle-packing protein, only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and just 4 grams of net carbs. Go to the website, Built.com. Use the promo code LOCK15 to save yourself some cash at Built.com. That's Locked15. Bo Brack hanging out with you here on the Locked On NFL podcast. Big thanks for everybody tuning in. And it's finally upon us. Like, the NFL season starts on Thursday. We got a full slate of games, of course, on Sunday, including, you've got the Niners coming back. They're looking to bounce back strong after being just completely ravaged by COVID and injuries. One of the new co-hosts of Locked On 49ers podcast and new co-host of the upcoming revamped Locked On NFL Draft. Our guy, Eric Crocker, is going to join us here right now here on the Locked On NFL podcast. Eric, thanks for joining us, man. Want to talk some NFL Draft. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, man, thanks for having me. And I'm excited to get into the draft and really learn more about a lot of these prospects. I understand the evaluation aspect of it, but now, I have to be ahead of the curve on a lot of these prospects. So that's going to be something that's really exciting to dive into.
Absolutely. Just like me, draft fiend. I'm always thinking about it. I'm always watching the games, usually on Saturdays, with kind of a thought of, can these guys play on Sundays? Can they play on the next level? And we're going to see the recent rookie crop this week. But this past weekend, especially looking at the quarterbacks, it was a very interesting class last year because you had, was it 5 quarterbacks in the first round? And you have this year, it's a little less, I don't know, there's a little less prospects in this group. And one of the guys I'm kind of down on, I don't know, can you spin it? Can you tell me why I shouldn't be down on Spencer Rattler?
Oh, he's an intriguing prospect. I remember watching him on QBU and just watching him and kind of how he dealt with that whole thing. It was a little interesting. And I was like, comes off a little, I don't want to choose the wrong words here, but a guy I probably wouldn't like to hang out with too much. And, he goes to Oklahoma.
Right?
Sir?
Not the most humble, right?
Yeah, and I get it. You coming up, you have all these this talent. You got the girls. You're the man, and sometimes I don't want to say you can just get to your head, but you kind of just take on that persona. And it seemed like he did that on QBU. Now he's at Oklahoma, and I would say he has taken on that persona on the field in the sense of feeling like he can get away with whatever he wants out there. Yeah. And we saw early on his second pass of the game and ended up being intercepted against a Tulane defensive back. And that was something where I think we've seen that consistently, where his decision-making is really up and down, more so than you would like out of your a top prospect, a guy that people have as a front runner for the Heisman Trophy Award.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He certainly seems to it takes him kind of getting a boot put up his butt, to really kind of wake up and then may take care of the football. He was able to kind of remedied those turnover problems that plagued him early last season. Only just 7 picks to end up. I want to take a look at this. So I had a couple risers and fallers that I watched over the weekend, and I had Rattler on there. Let's take a look at Sam Howell, North Carolina. Went 17 for 32, 208, a touchdown, and 3 picks against Virginia Tech. Now Virginia Tech always runs out some big-time cornerbacks, but 3 picks from a guy that's supposed to be one of the top quarterbacks off the board. What did you see from Hal? I didn't see too much, nothing special, that's for sure.
No, I definitely didn't. But, sometimes with this offense that he's in, with that offensive coordinator, same guy who was over there at Ole Miss, it seems like he doesn't really help his quarterback a whole lot. I think a lot of it had been just the talent that really carried that offense. When you look at him with Ole Miss, there was DK Metcalf, they had AJ Brown, they had Hodges, who was a terrific receiver in college as well. And then you go over last year and you have Dami Brown, you have Daz Newsome, you have the running back tandem in the backfield. And I felt like it masked a lot of deficiencies within this offense. Like there wasn't a lot with it. And then you see this game and now everybody's going to blame it on the fact, well, how has no help? And I think the biggest help that he's not getting is coming from his offensive coordinator, which really it's a very stale offense that's not helping the quarterback at all, and really not asking a whole lot of them from making a throw standpoint. And that was kind of a consistent theme throughout most of the college games that I watched.
It's interesting with Rattler and Howell. They're both 6'1". Not the big, tall quarterbacks that stand out in the pocket. Is that going to be an issue if they can't be special making plays, outside the pocket?
Well, I mean, we see guys like Baker Mayfield, and he's not the most mobile guy at all. Sure. But he's mobile enough to make plays outside of the pocket. And I think these guys have that as well, especially like Rattler. And I think, him being at Oklahoma, and him being kind of that dynamic passer guy, I think people expect him to be a little bit more athletic than he actually is. But I do think he's definitely athletic enough to be able to move, make plays outside the pocket. Again, I think the biggest thing with him is going to be the decision-making process, especially if he made that interception on the first drive. He had about 6 seconds setting up in the pocket and still threw it into triple coverage and they ended up getting intercepted. Like, that's what he needs to work on.
Okay. All right. Eric Crocker, Big Croc, he joins us here. Eric_Crocker on Twitter. Give a great follow there. Of course, you're going to listen to him every day on a daily basis. The Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, Locked On Niners. Let's take a look at some risers from over the weekend. And this is according just to me. I thought the interior defensive lineman, Jordan Davis, Georgia's defensive line was absolutely just unbelievable against Clemson, but Davis stood out. He had a sack. Then Desmond Ridder of Cincinnati, 20 for 25, 295, 5 total touchdowns. And I'm creating a stand club right now. Malik Willis, Liberty, the quarterback. Do you like Willis's game as much as I do, playing for the Flames?
Definitely. I mean, we talked about just a dynamic quarterback, and he is that. He's small in stature. We're talking about a guy, I believe he was at Auburn coming out and transferred over to Liberty, but he has a big arm. He's accurate, makes plays with his legs. I think he's going to bring that ability. And, the tough thing is, he played against Campbell, right? And last I remember, when I was coming out of high school, Campbell was an NAIA school. I don't know if they're still NAIA, but definitely a smaller division than that of Liberty. So I would like to see him do it against better competition. Last year, he ripped everybody apart. And I think that's what elevated him onto the stage. Now, can you be consistent doing it that way, especially now when the spotlight is on you? He has all the ability to do it. And I think he should be mentioned a little bit more in the top quarterbacks coming out. I think people, they talk about some of these other guys, but he's near the top. Especially if you judge off a lot of these performances that we just watched over the weekend, he should be getting there at the top.
Yeah. No, he's going to have to have one of those Zach Wilson type performances, Trey Lance, where he's going against lesser competition, Josh Allen, because he only plays, I think, like Syracuse and then maybe one other team later in the season where he's going to really be able to prove against maybe similar competition that he can ball out a little bit. Let's wrap things up because we were talking off air and you made a very interesting point. Some teams or some players that had their draft stock that kind of just stayed the same. I lost my slide, but they had I thought that Chris Olave, of course, of Ohio State, he balled out. He had 2 touchdowns. And then you had Kayvon Thibodeau, the defensive end for Oregon. He had a sack, 2 tackles, but then he had to exit the game. He was wearing a walking boot at the end of Oregon's win over the weekend. And I thought, could we have actually seen, they've got a big game against Ohio State coming up, but do you think we may have seen the end of Thibodeau playing in a Ducks uniform?
There have been some trends going on over the last few years, and it started with Christian McCaffrey and I don't know why I'm blanking on the running back Leonard Fournette. So it started with Christian McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette, where they sat out the bowl games, and we didn't see that before. And then that just was a snowball effect into what it is now, where guys, even if they're not even highly sought after draft picks, like they're still leaving and not playing in that game. And I was like, man, I remember thinking about it like, man, like, do these guys love football? And clearly they do, but they're thinking about their future. So, okay, I get it. Last year, you had the COVID season where it gave guys the option to either play or not play. And a lot of guys made the business decision to opt out. And for guys who were extremely talented, it did not hurt their draft stock at all. All right. I mean, you're talking about Jamar Chase. He still went number 5 overall. Some of the other guys that opted out, Panay Sewell, he was still he was like the number 7 overall pick in the class. So obviously people thought that they were these high caliber prospects and they didn't need to play a season. And you look at an injury like this to a guy, and even if it's not that serious, will he opt out almost like Nick Bosa did and say, you know what, I'm not going to risk my draft stock anymore by maybe re-injuring this or going out there and not being 100%. And I think there's a chance that we've seen him play his last down. Now, I think the bigger question is, will that be a trend, right? Like if there are guys that have these, they're just these really highly thought of prospects that potentially would go in the top 5, will those dudes just completely bypass playing their junior year of college, just say, I'm not going to play, go train and get ready for the draft process? I think that's something that can actually happen. And if that happens, man, that's going to be curious. See how that changes the dynamics of guys playing college football.
Sure, and it's not them just playing on scholarships anymore. So we'll see, if that changes it, the NIL, where guys are bringing in big money, if that maybe keeps them, playing this season instead of doing exactly what you're saying as far as just going and preparing for the draft. I mean, what do they have to lose? I mean, Thibodeau himself, he racked up a sack. He looked every bit as the prospect that we believed him to be. What else does he have to prove at this point, unless Oregon's going to compete for a championship? I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's going to be fascinating to watch.
They almost lost to Fresno State. I don't know.
There were some nail biters, including Oklahoma and Spencer Rattler, and some big upsets. Big Crocker, of course, Eric_Crocker on Twitter. Make sure you're listening on a daily basis. Locked On Niners, and of course, coming up soon, the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. Can't wait for it. Eric, thanks so much, man. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, man. Anytime.